and welcome to Near and Queer to My Heart. I am your host, Amanda G. I'm so happy to be here. This episode, we have New Orleans comedian extraordinaire, Clara Kelley. I really enjoyed this conversation because when we recorded this conversation, and I did not tell Clara this, I and my now wife had picked out rings, and I was planning the proposal and what that would look like and what our future would look like. And so weddings and engagements and all these things were on my mind, and I knew Clara had just gotten engaged, so we spent a lot of time talking about, what that means. And I think through this conversation it really helped me process a few things and get to the place where I wanted to be. And that's why between recording this and now, not only did I get proposed to, and also did I propose, but we went through and did it. We got married. When I was editing this, listening back, and just, hearing myself having these conversations with Clara, and I hope you all enjoy it too. So let's get to the episode. Let's get to Clara Kelley. Hey, Clara, how is it going today?
Hi, Amanda. Going well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so proud of myself. Every time a guest comes on, I'm like, I want to say, like, how are you? And I feel like that's such a loaded question post COVID. So I just asked you how it's going. And I don't know if that's better.
I mean, either way, it's just going to be like an generic answer. I'm not going to like trauma dump right off the bat.
No, we wait till 10 minutes in before we.
You have to ask more pointed questions to get that information.
Yeah, no, I've known you. How long have you been doing stand up?
A little under a year and a half.
Yeah, so I've known you that entire time. What was your first set?
Well, so my first set was at Ugly Dog. It was
Oh.
like mid-March. But then like a week or two after is when I did my first set at 12 Mile.
What was your decision to decide to try stand up comedy? Like, what I always wonder, like, what drives us, because it's like it seems insane. You're like, I'm gonna write jokes and then I'm gonna get up in front of strangers and I'm gonna tell them, and a lot of them are like personal things. And why am I compelled to do this? Yet I can't stop.
Yeah, so I went to go see Tig Notaro live at the Orpheum here in New Orleans. I haven't gone to see a whole lot of live stand-up just in general, but I saw her after listening to like the live album, like when she, broke out. And so seeing her, it was unlike any stand-up that I'd seen before. I was a huge fan of like Don Mulaney and like that stuff but I'd never like been to local comedy or anything. So something like just sitting there in the audience sort of clicked, and I was like, oh, maybe this might be for me. So I did a bunch of research before going up because I'm a nerd and I was scared. But like right off the bat, everything will tell you like you have to just go and do it. So I did.
That's the thing I tell everybody. I'm like, you gotta try. You gotta try it one time. You gotta try
Hmm.
karaoke. I always recommend to people, whether they can
I
sing
still
or
have
not.
never done karaoke.
You have to, because it's freeing in it's a whole different type of performance,
Yeah, I'm
and
sure.
especially if you're not a singer, or don't think you're a singer or haven't done that before. I think so. I'm just gonna tell you this. This is a tangent, but I don't even know how to talk about this. But I did a show in Bay St. Louis on Saturday, and my girlfriend's family lives near there. So after the show, we went out, and then we took an Uber back to her parents' place, and we get in this Uber, and we walk in and there's a disco ball inside, and the lady has a karaoke setup, and
Oh
she's
wow.
like, "Do you want a beer?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "Take a beer." And I was like, "Okay." And then she handed us each a microphone and was like, "Pick a song."
Oh my gosh.
And so we did, and we sang karaoke with this disco ball. There's lights everywhere. And we're just like in an Uber going to past Christiane, Mississippi from Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. It was the weirdest experience.
That is a very specific type of setup for an Uber driver to have.
Yeah, like who wants that in their car?
I would be terrified, honestly, if I got into it. Like, my partner would hate that. They are so against I would do karaoke with like the right amount of peer pressure, but I don't know that I would do it in the back of an Uber.
Yeah, because it's just us and her.
Right.
Like part of the appeal of public karaoke is the public part of it.
If you say so. I don't know. That seems to be like the word. I guess like also the thing about stand up, like as long as it's strangers in the audience, I can generally like that's fine. If it's people that I know, maybe not.
Why is that though?
Well, because with strangers, I feel like I care less about what they think. I generally don't have to see them again. There's like a level of anonymity. It's like telling your secrets to like a girl that you just met in the bathroom because you're both hammered. Like that's sort of how it is, I feel like.
Yeah, because I feel like other people are more fine with the people they know because they know they're rooting for them. They know they're still going to love them at the end of the day, or maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe that's the part that I'm missing. I'm sure they still would, but I don't know. And you have to spend time with them after, and
Yeah, and sometimes they're like, "Is that true?" And you're like, "Yeah."
yeah, no.
So Ugly Dog is an interesting place to get your start. Ugly Dog Saloon is like a barbecue joint in New Orleans. It is a room that's like half indoors, half outdoors. And a lot of people are there, at least in the times I've been, and don't even realize that comedy's happening.
Oh yes, it's like an ambush. They are hostages.
So it seems like an interesting place to start out.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting into. I mean, of course. I also don't eat meat, so like having to go to like this barbecue place was just a little bit weird. I was like, this is strange.
It smells so much of meat in that place.
Yeah, it does for sure. But it was a decent night. I mean, of course, Ryan is super friendly to like new comics. It was a fairly friendly room. I got it over with, which is the main thing.
Obviously, you came back, so you felt good
Yes.
about it.
I did not enjoy stand up the first couple times. I really enjoyed writing for the stand up set, but the first couple of times, some people say that they're like hooked from the first time. I was not. I was like, I sort of just like blacked out first couple of times.
But you
But
came
then
back.
eventually, yes, I did, because I knew I had to give it a couple more tries. And then eventually I did start to enjoy it.
Yeah, I was one of the people that like the first time I told a joke that got half a laugh, I was like, "What is this magic? What that I'm feeling?"
Oh, so I guess the other thing was like I always was afraid of public speaking, especially like I purposefully put myself through some exposure therapy in high school, but like in elementary school in speech class, I would be nervous like 3 days before a speech. Like it was quite bad. So deciding to do like stand up was so outside of the realm of anything that anyone thought that I was ever going to do. Because I was always like labeled the shy kid or whatever. I was always the one like I would be like really sarcastic and tell jokes, but it was always very quiet, just to like my immediate surroundings, just like the people that I was around. So there was a definite like it was a it was a clash that I wasn't quite prepared for. I was so mad when I realized that I had to go do stand up and like try an open mic. I was like this I'm so mad that this is what I have. Like I know I have to go and do it, but I'm so mad about it.
I was also that kid, which it boggles my mind, but I think it's because I have a lovely mother who was very outspoken, and so I didn't have to do that as a kid.
Yes.
And
Did your
then
mom speak for you as well?
oh, yeah, absolutely. She still
Yeah.
does sometimes. I mean, I still remember in first grade, I won this like story contest, and part of
Hmm.
winning it, you had to tell your story in front of the class. And I
Oh
was
no.
like, I don't want it. I don't. I just remember my heart was beating so loud I could like hear it. Like I was worried
Hmm.
that I was gonna die because I could hear my heart beating so loud. Like I was so nervous about anytime I talked to more than like two people at the same time, I would freak
Hmm.
out.
Or like the popcorn reading, or like going down the line where you're reading out of like the history textbook or whatever. I would like we would go like sentence by sentence. I would count the people and the sentences and find my sentence and just read it over and over and over again, instead of listening to anyone.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
by the time they got to me, I would have read it so many times, I would speak so fast to try to get it out of the way that I would stutter, and that would make me hate speaking even more.
Oh no.
So it's just like this vicious cycle. It was not a good time.
Yeah, and then now we're just going up in front of strangers multiple times a week, just
Yeah.
telling jokes and chit-chatting, and then part of it too is, like, chit-chatting with people before the shows, after the
Yeah.
shows, and it's so interesting that I love it now, like, I consider myself an extrovert now, and I would have never.
I'm not quite to that point. But yeah, I do that was one of the reasons that I did keep coming back, is because I realized that like comedians were just like another group of weirdos. I was like, okay, this actually like fits really well. Better than because I for a while worked as an accountant and that did not fit at all. Those people are
Oh.
so boring.
How did you fall into that? And, like, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, this is probably what we're here for.
Yeah.
So I grew up in southeast Iowa, a small town of like 9,000 people. And I really didn't know like anything about who I was. I was just sort of like doing what I was supposed to do. I went to school in Des Moines and I didn't have a major for like came in undeclared as like you're supposed to go to college, but I don't know what I want to study because I didn't know that what I wanted was important. So I was just like trying to find something that I could stand. I went on a partial saxophone scholarship, but I knew that I didn't want to be a music major because that's just a recipe for disaster. And then second semester freshman year, I took an accounting class. It was quite easy. but everyone else thought it was hard. So I was like, whatever, the professor also recruited me pretty hard. So I was like, whatever, I'll be an accounting major. And then I graduated with a degree in accounting.
Did not know that.
Yeah, it's not something that I mean, it's not, it's kind
Not
of
funny.
boring. I don't know. Yeah, and then I had to work with accountants, and that was rough. The schoolwork was fine, but working with accountants was not a good time at all. I did not last very long.
Yeah, I feel like there were not a lot of jokes happening.
Oh gosh, no. I was just like so full of existential angst, like depression. It was a bad time. I just had to go really. That was when I was engaged to a man as well. So basically, I had to go like really far in the wrong direction, and then eventually I made like a 180.
Yeah, and we'll put a
He
pin
lives
in
in
that because we are going to come back to that. Is that what got you to New Orleans from Iowa? Or is there, like, you're just like, I want to go somewhere where they don't even know the word accounting, and you're like, New Orleans?
This does overlap with the queer stuff. So I met my now fiance Carter when I was still living in Iowa, and then when the pandemic hit, we moved. Like I moved in to their house, and a couple months later, they like we knew that this was coming, but they got a job in Michigan, and so we moved out there. We were like in the middle of a hayfield, like it was the middle of nowhere, which was a great place to be for the pandemic. And that's when I started working at a bakery, and that was great. I had queer coworkers for the first time, which was crazy. I really got along with them, and I was really sad to leave that job because, like, we knew that we weren't going to stay there for very long, and we were there for maybe 8 to 10 months, and they got a job in New Orleans, and I was like, hell yeah, I'll go to New Orleans. So now we're here.
Because I always wonder how people end up
Right.
in New Orleans. Like, you're in Iowa, then
Got to be
you
something.
go up north to Michigan,
Hmm.
and then somehow you end up down in the south. And I also, you know, I tell people this too because I grew up in California. I went to school in New York, and I never thought I'd end up in the South. I thought like people are born in the South and they stay in the South. I never thought like people come to the South. But then you're in New Orleans and there's so many transplants and so many people from so
Yeah.
many walks of life, and it's so cool. But I did not envision that for my life.
Other than like the swamp weather, this is not what I expected from the South. And like maybe some of the food. It's easily my favorite place that I've ever lived. Like,
Let's see, because I know, and you talk about it on stage. You talk about being engaged to a man on stage, and it seems like that was a very pivotal point in your life. But how you were young, right?
yeah, we started dating when I was a freshman in high school, and then we got engaged when I was a senior in college.
Okay, so y'all were together a long time,
Yes, we were.
and that was just the next step. Is that like what everybody was kind of
Yeah,
doing?
I knew that I'd always wanted to get married. He certainly was not what I was picturing for my future husband. I also never thought that I was going to marry my high school sweetheart. I thought people who did that were dumb. So it was a bit of cognitive dissonance when I decided to do that, but that like yeah, it just seemed like the thing to do. Honestly, the other thing is like divorce runs in my family. Like everyone's been divorced at least once, generally twice. So I think I just needed to break off an engagement to get it out of the way. Like that sounds really bad, but like I wasn't able to picture the rest of my life because like every individual day with him was fine. It was good. I wasn't attracted to him. I never particularly was. But every individual day, like we were friends, it was good. But then when I had that ring on my finger and I was finally able to like sort of picture that every day for the rest of my life, I was like, this can't be all life is, right? Like this isn't how I'm supposed to feel. This is the love of my life. Like what a letdown.
Yeah, I think too, because like you were in school, when you're in high school, you're not thinking like your future is like college or like that next step. And
Right.
then you're a senior in college, and then it's like, oh, now I actually have to think about like where we're gonna live and if we're gonna have kids and what this like
Hmm.
actual future adult future is gonna look like. And yeah, if you can't do that, then it's like, hey, let me think about let me think about this.
Yeah, and I think it was the same sort of thing with me being an accountant. It was just I was really looking for safety and stability, and I thought that I could just like fit myself into whatever. Turns out I could not.
Do you still talk to him, or is that like burn
No.
bridge or
We are. I didn't really reach out to his parents at all afterward. They didn't reach out either. I don't think. That was one of the. I really liked his parents, and so that was part of the reason why I was like, I want to be a part of it. No one in their family gets divorced. Uh, yeah, no, definitely. Like I'll see him on Facebook, but yeah, we don't talk at all. I don't talk to most people from Iowa.
I did a comedy festival in Des Moines, and I met some cool people there, but I was just there for like 3 days, and it was like a bunch of comics from like a bunch of different places, so it
Hmm.
might have been a different look. But then when I was driving, I did a comedy fest in the Midwest, and I did like a little tour of the Midwest. And then when I drove through Iowa that time, there was a bunch of like farms with silos that said like Hillary should die
Oh
and
yeah.
things like that. And I was like, oh,
Yes.
this is aggressive.
Yup. That's my home state, the one that just tried to rescind gay marriage.
But y'all were the first ones to have it.
Yeah, but it's always been like a quote unquote swing state, and since Obama was elected, it's kept swinging further and further right.
Did you ever do a caucus?
Yes, I did. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't admit this because I probably should have caucused for Bernie, but I caucused for Hillary twice.
Oh, it's a safe space here.
Thank you.
I didn't know. I always heard like we always, would Iowa caucus, and then I didn't know
Hmm.
what it was. I didn't know what a caucus was.
They make it
Uh,
sound way more fun than it is. Like,
it's just a bunch of people in a room shouting. Like, how would you
yeah,
describe it?
sort of. Yeah, it's a bunch of people in a room, and then you sort of have to like break off into groups, and then they have to count all the people in the groups to see how many are for each delegate, and it takes fucking forever.
But you can like recruit people like to your like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't really talk to people because I that's not really my thing. I'm not going to talk to strangers. I was there, I stood in my spot. I was one of the bodies.
I don't know. I guess I always thought like voting, you go and you vote, and I didn't understand a caucus was like this. My friend's like, yeah, you go in a room and like this corner's Hillary and this corner's
Yep.
Bernie and this corner's the independent, and
Hmm.
everybody's trying to get this person over here, and then at some
Yeah, because
point they
there's
like,
like a threshold to meet to like get another like delegate or whatever.
yeah, I was like, that's wild that they in 2023 we're still this is still how we're deciding things.
I mean, it makes about as much sense as the rest of it, like,
Well,
which
yeah,
is not much.
yeah, I know. It's like our individual votes, so it's like, do they even count the way we draw
Not really, because it's
jurisdictions and
yeah, all the gerrymandering, like it's way easier to like. I don't know. I don't want to speak on this because I'm not enough of an expert, honestly. Like,
yeah, we don't have to get all political. I was just like, just literally growing up, not in Iowa, like you hear the word caucus, and I just
hmm
had no idea what it was. And then when I was like
it sounds like a
35,
party.
yeah, someone told me, and it like blew my mind.
I suppose it's more fun than voting.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is how we decide things. Like we just
Hmm.
yell and scream, and then take a head count at the end of the day.
I mean, that does seem sort of like what the founding fathers would have envisioned. Isn't that what they were doing? Like,
Yeah. So wild. So I know you said that you always wanted to get married. I'm gonna ask, and I've asked this of other guests because
hmm
for me, like I believe in marriage. Like I do believe in marriage, and I do want to get married. But like the idea of the government being involved in my shit has always kind of thrown me off a little bit. Where it's like I do like the idea of committing to somebody, and I want to throw a party, and I want my friends to buy me gifts that because I bought them all kinds of gifts and flown all over the place to go to their wedding. So like I want that too. But then the idea of this like this government piece always sticks me. And for other people it's not a thing. Like I guess what's your what you said you always want to be married, is it just something like you always envisioned for yourself, or is it an institution, if we're going to use that word, that like you believe in, or is it just like the idea, this like idea of being able to commit to the person you're with in this like extra special way, or like what does it mean for you?
I think I always wanted like a partner to do life with. Like the government part, I never really thought about it. I guess know intellectually that we have to like sign a piece of paper and whatever, but that, and even like I don't think I ever really pictured my wedding even per se. It was like, because a lot of people like, oh, dream of a wedding and all that. I didn't particularly. It was more like I just want my person just to be with and know that we're gonna just be in this together.
You're already in that, so why, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's something about the permanence of it
Mm.
that because when we got engaged, there was definitely a mindset change because I hadn't really been thinking about the future with like I was going great, like I enjoy living with them, but there was definitely a mindset shift, and it was like, oh, so like this is I know that they are always going to be here, and I am always going to be here. Like this is a constant now. This is a constant variable. So like if I decide to like if I need to move for stand up or something, like that's going to be one of the main factors is like we're in this together.
Okay, so that takes you from the I to like the we.
Yeah,
Okay, because I've bought a house with two different exes, so I feel
right.
like I'm like you could just do that.
Yeah, and we have bought a house together. And even after that, it wasn't like when we bought the house. This is probably because they're a bit older than me. I wanted to know exactly what was going to happen if we split, what I was going to get. I wanted to make sure that I had like a safety net in place. like some security. But now I'm like, okay, we're like in this together forever. Cool. I don't know. Maybe that's some like cishet residual conditioning that I have. And I think it's sort of strange that I would even like want to get like believe so much in marriage given everyone in my family is divorced.
Yeah, given what she said earlier, you're like, I might as well
Yeah.
get the first one out of the way.
Yes. I don't know. Maybe it's like it's probably like a bit of naivete as well, but I'm like, yeah, maybe we can do maybe we'll make it.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm all in for all, like I do, and I try, and I do have that like cis het kind of thing of like, do I want this because this is what society has told me I want, and I
Mhm.
want to fight against that, but I also like want a wedding, and I want to propose, and I want to be proposed to, and I want a honeymoon, and I'm gonna wear a tux, but like I want all the things, you know?
Yeah. So I think part of what helped is like we didn't do any of the stuff in the traditional like I don't know if I've been able to bring this to 12 Mile because it's sort of a longer bit, but our engagement, it was more like so we were just sitting on the couch watching Married at First Sight.
Classic
Which
television.
yeah, it's I love all those like dumb shows like that. And Carter was sitting there watching with me pretending not to like it, but they actually do. And they just go, "Well, if those idiots can get married," and then that was basically the point where we decided to get engaged. Like that was it wasn't a proposal. We didn't have like rings picked out. We just like sort of realized that, oh, this actually makes a lot of sense for us.
Yeah, for people who have been together, already made a commitment, and have seen each other more than one time.
Yeah, for sure. Like we've already sort of been over. I've been through a lot of changes in my 20s, which is generally what 20s are for, but it seemed like I've been through I think more drastic changes than a lot of people as far as I understand it, and they've been there through all of that. And they haven't changed as much because they're now like 40, so change generally slows down a bit, but I felt sort of secure in knowing that they've seen all of those parts of me and that we've made it through all those changes. So like I think it really bodes well for the future that we
Yeah.
can handle change together.
Yeah. I always think, it's good to have, when you really know is when you have your like first big fight,
Mm,
and you see how you fight, essentially. Like not just, and not necessarily how you fight, like just how you communicate, because it comes out
mhm.
in those moments in like such a raw way.
Yeah, we've certainly had those rough moments, and we still like have them because it's hard to tell sometimes when the other person is triggered. And like, so sometimes there will be like that disconnect or like those moments where you're like, don't really know what's going on. Like, just why are they being mean?
Mhm.
But generally, I can always come back to the place where I know that I love them and I want to be with them, and then everything else can work itself out from there.
Are y'all planning a wedding?
So we are, I guess, planning an elopement. We're going to New Zealand in February.
Ooh.
So they did their PhD in Wellington. So they lived there for like 6 years or something.
Guessing that's in New Zealand, but I'm not good at maps.
It's somewhere over there. So one of their friends is getting married, and it's a friend that they'd always said that if they ever got married, they wanted that person to officiate. And so when we were planning this trip, I was like, "Hey, since we're already going to be over there, you want to just like get married?" And so now we're getting married over there, and then it's an easy honeymoon because we're already in New Zealand.
Yeah, well, that'll be fun. How's your family feeling about everything? Like, well, I'll back up a little bit because this is and we've kind of answered part of this, but this is the one question that I do ask everybody that comes on this podcast, and it's the coming out question. But I like to ask it in like a different way, because coming out's like layers, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
just come out in this one moment like they do on TV, and we have music playing behind us and a disco ball, and
Mhm.
it's all good. It's coming out in layers is kind
Yeah.
of how I look at it. So I like to ask, like, when did you first come out to yourself? When did you come out to like friends and family? And then if it's relevant, which for you, I don't think it is. I think you were pretty much out on stage. But when did you come out, on stage or in your,
Mm.
stage persona? Because for other folks, that was a journey. But I feel like you were always out on stage.
Yeah. Had some jokes in there about it. I mean, I look the way I look, so it's and it tends. I mean, this tends to be an easier punchline to like put people at ease because they're like, they see you and you're like, what's going on there? There's something not normal.
Yeah, well, that's
Uh,
why so many comics, like, the first thing they do is get on stage and acknowledge, and this is what you're supposed to do, acknowledge what they look like
hmm
if they're really tall, if they're really short, if they're have long hair or dreads or whatever it is. It's like you just want to acknowledge what you think people are seeing, because it does
hmm
make them feel more comfortable and it makes them trust you.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I first came out to myself, I was engaged. I must have been 22. It was probably one of the most boring ways to realize that I was gay. So I was surfing on Twitter, and I happened to come across this document. I feel like you've probably heard of it, the "Am I a Lesbian?" Master Doc,
Mm-hmm.
and I started reading that. And so my attraction had been just in general suppressed for quite a while. I knew that I was like bisexual, but I'd never really acted on it because I'd been with this guy for what, 8 years. But then I started reading through this, and some of the signs that weren't attraction related, I mean, some of them that were, but like it was very relatable, concerningly relatable. So I kept reading. I read the whole thing. It's pretty freaking long. And then,
I've skimmed. I have skimmed. I have not gone through it, but I
oh
can
yeah, I
see
did
where.
because it was like this was like a moment. I think I was in a hotel room on a some business trip for this accounting firm that I was working for. And then I sent it to my friend. I was like, "Hey, is it just me or is this like crazy relatable?" And she was like, "No, I don't relate to it, but I can see how you would relate to it." And I was like, "Oh no." So pretty soon after that, I did break off my engagement and move out. I didn't come out I came out to like a couple of friends that were like in the area, but I lived apart from my family since I was 18. I think I came back to live in my hometown after my freshman year of college, and that was the last time that I lived there. And so I didn't come out to any of my family until after I started seeing my now fiance. Because I don't know, it sort of felt like I didn't really have a reason to. Yeah, so I'm just like, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. Uh,
Yeah, I always say it was like because I think it is kind of like more of a lesbian stereotype because I did that. Like I got a girlfriend and then I didn't because for me it was like it was so much easier to say like I have a girlfriend than for me
yeah.
to say like I am gay
Hmm.
at the time. I mean, I was 23 and it was still figuring things out, but and you also like for me it was like the safety net. Like I have this person that like if everyone in my life decides to abandon me and thinks I'm going
Mm.
to hell, then I at least already have this like support built in. Like it was kind of like a backup plan for like not having anybody in my life kind of thing. But I think about that a lot where it's like I wish I could have been strong enough for me to like do it on my own terms.
Mm.
But for me that's what gave me the strength was like being with somebody and knowing like for sure like this is who I am and this feels so much different than like anytime I tried to date a dude.
Yes. Yup. So different.
Yeah, because you spend like all your teen years, it's like I spent hours on the phone and passing notes in school and just talking about this crush and that crush of my friend. We talked
Hmm.
about dudes all the fucking time.
Yup.
And I would do it because I wanted to have friends and
Yeah,
be
it's like a
part of
social thing.
society. Yeah, and not be like a weirdo in high like there's enough stuff that makes you weird in high school.
Hmm.
So I would just like get on board with this, but I didn't feel it and I didn't understand it. And when my friends would go so gaga and they do the craziest shit for these dudes that
Oh,
it
I
seemed like the dudes could
know.
care less sometimes and
My friend like slept in a car one night, like outside.
yeah, yeah,
I
there's a
just
lot of
used to have
stalking and
like,
teenage girls are real good at
hmm,
stalking.
I've done my fair share of
Yeah.
Facebook stalking.
I've never slept outside someone's house
Oh
though.
God, no, not that level.
Yeah, no, like one of my friends, she bought a car that had like this really cool engine in it that like all the guys wanted to borrow and like race and whatever. And she says she did it because she likes cars, but like,
Hmm.
who knows? But anyway, one of the dudes she had a crush on, he definitely crashed her car.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and her dad was not happy
Yeah. Oh.
because she wasn't supposed to let anybody drive it because her dad was like, "If we're gonna get this car," but of course, all the dudes wanted to drive it, and
Hmm.
she wanted to hang out with them, and I just didn't understand it. I was like, "You have the coolest car in the world, like why let this guy drive it?" But then I understand. I started dating women. I was like, "Oh."
I'd let you crash my car.
Yeah, I was like, "Here's the keys. Like, I'll never drive it again. You could just have it, you know?"
Yeah, the way that I came out to actually a lot of people was just showing them a picture of the person that I was seeing. Honestly the easiest way for me to do it. I was like, "Hey, here's the person that I'm dating. Obviously queer."
So you kind of did the same. Yeah, we kind of did the same thing where it's
Yeah.
like, I have a girlfriend. I was like, that's what I would just like. I have something to tell you. I have a girlfriend. I remember saying
Hmm.
that to people and not saying like I am gay.
Yeah, because once you say I have a girlfriend, the rest is like, oh, just a
Yeah, and I don't know if it's different because you're younger than me. Like I came out at. I'm 40 now. I came out at 23, so that would have. I'm not gonna. I don't know, 2006. We're looking at
different time. Yeah.
yeah, like Facebook had just really started. That's when like Facebook you could only be on it if you went to school and you used your school email. Like it
Mm.
was a very different time.
Hmm.
So, and I don't know, some people now are like it's easier now and some people are like it's harder now cuz the country is like so much more polarized in some ways, but there's also like so much more queer visibility now than there was when I was younger.
Well, and the thing about growing up in like such a small town in Iowa is that there I did not know any queer women. I knew of like one or two gay guys. My mom did ballet, so that was one. And then there was one guy at our school who, had all the stereotypes going on. Even he dated a woman. But I did not meet a queer woman until I was in college. And that's part of what cracked my gay egg was this professor that I got a little bit obsessed with. I would have totally let her crash my car. Uh,
Slept outside her house.
yes. And that's sort of like, oh, I'm definitely bisexual. And then eventually I had to be like, oh, I'm really not into dudes like at all.
Yeah. And everyone's coming out is different, and it's however you want to do it and whatever makes you feel comfortable. And it's easy for me to now be like, "Oh, if I went back in time, I'd be like, I'm gay, fuck you." But like I didn't do that because at the time
Mm-mm.
I wasn't ready.
Yeah. I mean, same. I wish I could have gotten that like college experience of being actually gay. But to be fair, I think I learned a lot more in college than I would have because I was in a long distance relationship with this dude. So I like knew that I had a boyfriend, but I didn't have to spend that much time with him, but I could still like brush off all the other guys.
When I was in high school, at least in college, I was not out loud, but at least internally, like open to the idea of an attraction to another woman.
Mhm.
But in high school, if I even thought a thought, I would fight it. I would be like, no.
Mm.
And so, like, I had no space in my life for that. So I was like, I'm just going to focus on my studies because I wanted to get out of my hometown and my family didn't have money. So the way you do that is you get good grades and get out that way. And so I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm just focused on my studies. I don't have time for boys. But when I really think back to like moments of like there were attractions and there were these like feelings that I had, I repressed the fuck out of them.
Mhm. See, I always thought of them as friendship crushes. I always thought that what I now know is like, oh, I was actually like into that girl. It's just like, oh, I really want to be her friend. I really want to spend time with her.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. And sometimes I was able to, a lot of the times I wasn't, but I would still like, you just like look at someone, you're like, ah, your face is just great.
Yeah. I remember one time I was at my friend's place. We were like just sitting on her bed, going through a magazine or something. And I remember I had this thought of like, I really want to kiss her right now. And then the next thought was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Don't think
Mm,
that. That's weird. And then I just like put it away. It was all there. I put it away so deep and so buried. And then when it came out, it was like, I was like, oh my God. It was like one of those flashback moments in the
yeah,
movie
like,
when
oh,
they like,
so many things make sense now.
yeah, they realize that this person's actually like the murderer or whatever, in the movies when it's all pieces together, it's like it was like
Mm,
that.
like the strings on the board, you're like,
Yeah.
conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Also, I don't know about you, and maybe you, obviously your fiance was probably surprised, but like most people in my life were not surprised.
See, I don't know if they were surprised since I mostly just came out via text because this is most of my coming out was like beginning of pandemic. I didn't really have a chance to be like out and queer because I came out only a couple months before the pandemic hit. They didn't seem like they were like generally supportive, which is what I was expecting. Like I don't come from a conservative family. There was never like open homophobia. It's more like the just thing where you just don't see it, the lack of representation. Yeah, but I do definitely wonder. And like my partner has seen pictures of me in high school and they look at them and they're like, "You're very clearly gay." I'm like, I don't know what you're seeing, but I'll take your word for it. Like you're not wrong.
What made them say that? I look at pictures of me and I could tell that I was trying to be girly in a way that like it was not authentic. Like I can see the
Mhm.
awkwardness.
I think that's sort of what they were seeing, just like uncomfortable in my own skin, which I totally was, but I always thought that that was for other reasons.
I'll ask this because this is something my dad has fussed at me about. Where he's just like, when are you going to stop talking about being gay on stage? That's all you talk about. And he's like, I'm not saying you can't talk about it on stage. I'm just saying like maybe talk about something else because like
Mhm.
all of the jokes, whether they're about being queer or not, include generally not all, but I'd say most include some piece of queerness to them.
Mhm.
And I think it's part of it is like being in the closet so long and not being able to verbalize that now that I do something where I verbalize a lot that like I want to include that, but part of it is like I don't control what I can't just I can't the way I write comedy, I can't just be like, I'm gonna write a joke about pillows today and then
Mhm.
write about pillows, like I just get a thought in my head and I kind of build on that, and it's like whatever comes into my head. Usually it's like when I'm driving or like doing the dishes or like doing some sort of like other task where my brain kind of like clicks into like just thoughts, and then I take those thoughts and I build them into a set. And queerness is generally a part of it. You've heard my stuff. And part of it I think is, like I said, I think it's important to have that visibility. I think it's an important part of who I am that I couldn't verbalize. But then part of it is like that's just how the writing kind of happens for me.
Hmm.
Do you feel that? Do you intentionally include or try to deviate from, or
Sometimes I intentionally do like include some queer bits. There was a while where I was like, that was basically my whole set. I feel like that's something that I just had to do. This is the case with a lot of my jokes, but eventually I just get bored of them. And I even had a dream at one point when I had been doing that set for a while where I just realized that I was so bored of telling queer jokes. I was like, and so like sometimes I'll have like little inclusions of gay stuff. So what I've been doing recently and what I'm going to be bringing tonight to 12 Mile is I finally sort of cracked through. So with all the stuff that's happening with trans people right now, like all the hate that's going around, all the transphobia, all the rights that are being taken away, all the murders and suicides, like it's a super scary time. And I'll have to double check with them if this is okay. But my fiance is trans. And so for a while when all that stuff was going down in Florida, I couldn't write about it at all. Like I knew that it was important to talk about, but I just didn't have an angle. I was just like sad. Uh, but when I was in San Diego in June, uh, my uncle, who is just so into Elon Musk, something about that like cracked through, and suddenly I was able to write about it. And so that's not directly because I'm not trans, as far as I know. I pretty heavily interrogated that because once you come out as gay, it's like the next thing is gender, and you have to be like, am I a woman or am I just weird?
yeah, no, it's definitely a piece you have to like figure out.
But yes, as far as I know, I am a woman. But I like it's been really I'm really like grateful to be able to finally talk about this now and bring it to the stage. And so that's it's not exactly talking about my queerness, but it's still talking about the community in general. And I feel like I'm saying something more important than like, oh, I'm gay, look at my hair, isn't it silly?
Yeah, no, because I was trying to write a bit about these like this bullshit with the libraries, because the library in St. Tammany Parish, they're reviewing 500 different books, and they're reviewing like
Oh,
one book a week, and they're having a meeting once a week to discuss why this specific book shouldn't be in their library. And I was trying to write a bit about it, but it just was like this angry like diatribe about how fucked up it is.
yeah, it's like fascism 101. Like when you start banning books, like those are the bad guys. Like that's
Yeah, well, I was just like, if you have to Google how to get to the library so that you can go to the fucking meeting to go fight the goddamn book that you don't want your kid to read, even though you don't have never took them to the library
yeah, you've never
and you
been
don't
to
have
the
the
library in
library
your life.
card, yeah, then like what are we even doing? But it just sounded angry. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't able to like find that funny. So
I think there is something there, but like it might take a bit to get there.
yeah, so I do understand that struggle of like I do have something to say,
Hmm.
and maybe if it's not even my experience, it might be something I feel strongly about, or I have friends or loved ones that are dealing with it, and I want to I want to bring it to the like we have a platform and we
Yeah,
are able to
exactly.
reach people in a cool way. Like I've had people come up to me after this set and tell me about, oh, my brother came out and this is what our family did, and I'm so glad like you're out here doing this because my
Nice.
child is queer and they don't like they're scared to express it, and I just want them
Hmm.
to know that they're loved and they have role models. Like you get a lot of that stuff that's so great, and that's why it is important to continue doing it. But it's also we can use it to stick up for other folks or to make
Hmm.
points about like how ridiculous, like look at, especially you're gonna get me on this platform, but like especially in Louisiana, like shit is like we're like the worst in education and poverty.
Yeah, like no one's reading books in the first place. You're gonna ban some of them?
And that's what our legislation's focused on, whereas like we have an increasing homeless population and people that
Hmm.
can't afford rent and
And food.
food and necessities. It's like let's put our time and effort into that. No, we're not. We're gonna do a don't say gay bill, or we're gonna tell
Yeah,
girls they can't talk about their fucking periods, or like what, like it boggles my mind at how idiotic it is. But you can't just say that because I sound very condescending. I know
yeah.
that.
Well, that's what I'm
um
like trying to highlight with my jokes. Like you'll hear them tonight, but it's sort of like highlighting the point that I'm hammering right now and getting at is like the whole trans people are crimes against nature. And I'm like, have you met nature? Like, it's fucking weird. And so, like, what I really like jokes that'll like sort of flip your way of thinking. And So that's sort of like I'm trying to just highlight the ridiculousness of all that. Like none of it is logically consistent. It's all just
Yeah.
like they need someone to hate, and this is such a small group that doesn't have enough people to speak up for them. And like if people think they're gonna stop with trans people, like absolutely not. Like we're next for sure.
Oh yeah. And everybody is next.
Yeah.
Women aren't safe. I mean, we
Mm-mm.
already know that.
Yeah.
Minorities of any kind aren't safe.
Hmm.
Even cis white men, like if you're, it was the same. Like even like if you look at history, it's like it wasn't even just like white men that were the only people that could vote. It was landowning white men.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
there's always going to be these like extra categorizations that are going to make it like a smaller and smaller pool
Yeah.
of
Like it wasn't just like Germans, like you had to have blue eyes, brown
yeah,
blonde hair.
and have generation, yeah.
Like just get more and more specific.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, we're not going to end this on a sour note, but I understand what you're saying. I'm glad you're able to find something funny in a serious thing because I'm struggling with that and I've struggled with that
Oh
many a
yeah.
time.
Yeah. I mean, this took me months to get at. Like, trust me, I get it.
Yeah. I do think there's, some comedians that do such a great, like I think Margaret Cho always does such a great job of like moving back and forth between the funny and the serious. Like she'll tell a
Hmm.
serious joke about like a friend that passed away from HIV and then she'll immediately make a joke and get you like back in, but also like have made her point and
Hmm.
have it be like something that sticks with you, you know?
Yeah, and that's like generally my goal.
Yes.
Like
Well,
how Hannah Gadsby says that, like with stories and like laughter is the sugar that sweetens the bitter medicine.
yeah. And Hannah Gadsby is a great example of that.
Hmm.
And also like flipping the script on like how we even look at like what is a comedy special, like is this
Hmm.
a comedy special, is this stand up, what does that look like
Right.
like Hannah has done a really great job of bringing that to the cultural overall conversation.
Yeah.
I'll ask you this one question. This will be the last one because hopefully this will wrap it all up
Yeah.
nicely, tie it with a bow, and leave it on a positive note, not just me being angry about the
Me too.
ridiculousness of the world. Like, what are your goals for comedy? Like, I know you were compelled to do it. You were compelled to keep doing it. Now you've been doing it about a year and a half. Like, what do you hope? Ideal, best case scenario, like if you could decide what your comedy career holds, like what does that look like for you?
So far I haven't really like focused on what, like I'm not going to say that I want a Netflix special or whatever. Like right now I'm really focused on I just want to be funny and then hopefully make people think in a way that they haven't thought about something before. Like that's really important to me. I guess the best case scenario, it would be cool to like work on a cartoon at some point. Those have always been my favorite to watch, just personally. And you can see it in my Instagram and like how like I basically never post videos. Like I'm not looking to get famous. I'm looking to get good.
That's what you should be doing. Everyone should be looking
Hmm.
to get good first because then
Yeah,
the other things will come because you have the skill sets to back it up.
right. Like I'm still very aware that I like. Yes, I'm a year and a half into it, but I'm still in comedy years. That's pretty young.
Yes.
Everyone recording specials
Mhm.
so new, like that's a fairly recent phenomenon. And I try to always keep that in my mind because I'm still in the growing pains phase, even if my stuff's landing better than other people who've been doing it longer. Like it doesn't mean that I'm still not new.
Yeah, when I first started comedy, my dad, who he was a comedy writer, so he could speak to
Mhm.
this a little bit, but he said, "You're not gonna have a good joke until you're 5 years in." And he said, not that you won't write a good joke, you're not going to be able to tell it. You're not going
Mhm.
to have the stage prep. Like, it's going to take you 5 years. And at first, I was like, fuck you, dude. Like, I'm not going to wait 5 years. Like, I already get laughs. But when something happens, when you hit that fifth year, there's like an ease or something that happens on stage that he was right.
Hmm.
He was right. And I didn't record my first special, I guess, till I was 7 years in.
That seems way more reasonable.
It was a half hour. I was like, I can't do an hour. Like, it's just,
That's so much stamina too.
yeah. I had my jokes written out on two different papers on different sides of the stage in case I forgot where I was. But I think it's hard too on the professionals that have to do like an hour special every year. Like, that's hard to have like good,
Yeah,
solid material.
I don't know that I would ever be willing to do that because I don't know that I would ever. Oh gosh, like I watched I don't know what she did to prepare for it, but I watched like the newer Ellen special.
Hmm.
Hated it. It seemed like
Does she have like a new one, or is this like the one from a few years
One
ago?
from a few years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I
Where
hated that one too.
yeah.
Because the first 10 minutes, I was actually just talking with my girlfriend about this because I was upset about it all over again, even though like my girlfriend hadn't seen it and had no idea what I was talking about. But it's like the first 10 minutes she just spends like telling you how rich she is.
Yeah. None of the jokes were like, I know that it's impossible for her to get an unbiased audience because everyone knows who she is, and it's easy to get a special that, like, you get a ton of laughs on everything, but that doesn't mean that it's funny, it just means that you have a bunch of people in the audience on your side.
Yeah. I did cry at the end though when they did the Q&A. I don't know if you made it that far
Maybe not.
because Laura Dern was in the audience and Laura Dern played her on the Ellen show when she came out and got canceled and all that happened. Like Laura Dern played
Mm.
her partner on the show, and Laura Dern, who was just played her partner on the, she said, I didn't get work for 3 years. And Oprah played her, like they had a therapist sequence in it, and Oprah was the therapist, and Oprah said she never got more hate mail in her entire career than she got from being on the Ellen show. This was not the stand up, it was like the aftermath of everything, and people were asking questions, and Laura Dern was in the audience, and it was like such a cool, touching thing. So I love
Yeah,
that.
that
But
like, that seems like important information and, like, a really good but that's not
yeah, so maybe skip the rest of the show just to watch
skip the
that.
actual stand-up part and
Yeah.
alright.
But even like Amy Schumer's most recent special, which just got released, she had the first joke
Mhm.
she tells is the joke she told 15 years ago.
I've never really watched her stuff. I don't watch a lot, honestly.
Yeah, I was part of my research before I started. I spent 6 months. All I did was listen to queer and female identified comedians.
Mm.
I would listen at work on Spotify. I would watch their specials. I would go to all the local open mics. The mics I saw like whoever was performing, but I thought like females have a different voice and queer comics have a different voice
Yeah.
than the straight cis white males do. And I really wanted to like to tap into that. So I used to listen to Amy Schumer's old stuff like before she was like famous kind of stuff.
Mm.
And the fact that she's now super famous and going back and pulling those bits means that she didn't have an hour and they were pushing her to do an hour.
Mhm.
And I don't ever want to get to that place, you know? Like I want to do comedy
Right,
because
like,
I
you wanna be
love it.
ready for it, yeah. You wanna put out, like, a good thing that you're proud of.
Yeah. And I was a little disappointed by that. But I kept telling people that and everyone's like, "Well, I hadn't heard it before." And I was like, "I understand that." Maybe I'm
I
a
guess that makes sense, like, no one would have heard it probably because like,
Yeah.
you know, so he hasn't done a
It was
deep
this like
dive, but
audio record because it was this audio recording she released called Cutting. It was from forever ago, and it was I think it was she released it before she was on like Last Comic Standing, and she got all big. So like other people hadn't listened to it, but it's on Spotify. You can listen to it now. I do like at the end of that special, the last joke. She just says, "I'm going to leave you with this," and then she says, "My sister cuts herself," and then she walks off stage. And it's so fucked up, but it's so like I don't know, it's so funny to
I
me.
there's something about that that I do really like.
I thought you would because you like those kind of, like, awkward
Yeah, like,
moments.
it's like, it's messed up, and it's not even like it's not even a punchline, but the fact that it's not a punchline is the punchline,
Yeah, and then
like
that's how she walks away, like, she just
yeah,
leaves.
that's impressive.
Yeah.
Like, that's gutsy too.
Yeah. Some of her old stuff is super, racist and offensive and, gutsy in that way, but she was emulating the dudes at the time that were doing this, and that, you know, at the time, that's she was a New York comic, and in New York, it was very much like the Lisa Lampanelli kinda like, "Oh,
Mm,
you're this, like, we're gonna make fun of this." So she's grown a lot from that, and I think her last special when she was pregnant was, like, fantastic. It's just this new one, I just thought she wasn't ready, and I was like, "I hope I'm never at a place where comedy is like being forced upon me, like you have to produce this by this date."
yeah. Well, because if you're not having fun with it, how is the audience supposed to?
Yeah, and why am I doing it? Like
Yeah.
I do it because I love it. Like, I know everyone not everyone, but some people are just like, "You run an open mic, that must be terrible every week." And I'm like, "I fucking love it. I love comedy so much. I
I'm
love
glad you do.
being there. I love getting up in between. I like introducing people. I like after they get off stage, roasting them a little bit sometimes, or just, I just love every part of it. And until I don't love it, when I don't love it, I'll stop doing it. But I absolutely
Right.
love it.
Yeah, I think that has to be first.
And I'm excited to see your set tonight.
Well, yeah, I'm excited to go and do it, and I
Yeah.
love, like, there'll be times when I'm, like, maybe doing too many mics or maybe, like, the material just isn't something I'm, like, passionate about, But I love when I'm genuinely excited to go to an open mic and like bring the jokes out
Yeah.
that I've been working on.
Oh yeah, testing a new joke or working on a new joke. Oh, I love
Yeah.
every part of it. It's so exciting. Well, thanks so much for doing an episode of Near and Queer to My Heart. Can you just let folks know if you want to? Because I know you just said like you don't post a lot on social media, but if if folks want to interact with you, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, sometimes I will post about the shows that I'm doing. My Instagram is Sad House Cats, spelled exactly like how it sounds.
Why sad? There's no sad
Well,
house cats.
well, so I actually created that Instagram handle and Twitter handle long before I started doing comedy. It just happened to work.
Yeah, I was like, but all the house cats are happy. They're the lucky ones.
I don't know, my house cat is on antidepressants,
Oh,
so
oh. But does he
she was
see?
peeing on the walls.
Okay, I was like, but does your cat see the outside cats?
No.
Take your cat for a walk.
Yeah, we should. But then she tries so much harder. I don't know. This is a constant, not constant. This is a thing with my partner because like having cats outside it can like affect the wildlife and all of that.
Hmm.
Anyway, I just don't like to argue with them.
No, you can't. When it comes to cat lovers, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, I had to just pick my battles with that one. And I was like, she seems okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you
Give her
as
plenty
as
of love.
someone who's very much a cat lover. There's no logic. Even if it's a logical argument, I don't want to hear
I respect that.
it. All right, thanks so much for doing the
Yeah,
podcast.
thank you.
All
I'll
right,
see you soon.
yeah. Thank you to our guest, Clara Kelley, for sharing her world with you. Special thank you to Ryan Golub for our theme music. Social media with us. You can find us on, I guess it's called X now, formerly Twitter at Queer to My Heart, Instagram and Facebook at Near and Queer to My Heart. And if you feel like it, go on Apple Podcasts, throw us a 5-star review. Please, please, please. And thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll see y'all for the next episode. Thank you.